Ryan Darr is the Senior Manager of Customer Success at Braze. Christopher Stevenson, Senior Manager of CRM at Xfinity. Please give them a warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's the time where the caffeine actually drops, so I hope everyone is still awake. And here to kind of wake you a bit more, we're going to talk about how effective data management can actually help you in your personalization efforts. I know it's data and caffeine, really like sort of the opposite of one another in this case. But here is Chris to help us. So, Chris, can you tell us a bit about yourself and kind of share why this topic is so important to you?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Chris. I've been working marketing for about 10 years now. First starting agency side, some freelance consulting in between. I then did a couple of years working with TUI, the holiday company. I've seen a couple of the guys here already this morning. I now work for Xfinity, which is a global fintech business, home to a number of brands working in the trading and investing space. I work here as a senior manager in CRM, Martech department. So what I look after here is really everything specifically on the technical side. So managing our Braze platform, all the data and events and attributes that come into the platform, how we best manage that, utilising the tools and features we have available in Braze, which is vast, to best serve our customers, really bring our strategies to life and enhance and enrich our customer journeys as much as possible. Looking after all our integrations that come in, Movable being one of many that we have set up already, working on our API content feeds and how we best personalize and use dynamic content wherever we can, wherever possible, with a real heavy focus on automating everything we can as possible without having any risk of sacrificing any personalization, because that's really a core focus for us. So why is this topic important to me? I assume it's important to everyone else that's here today. Personalization is touches everywhere in our lives, and data is important for everything we need to do for our customers or users, as well as inviting more people along for the ride as well. But what I think is really important about this title is driving meaningful experiences. So we can collect a vast amount of data about all of our users or customers, whether it's from what they view on our web pages, what products they buy, their shoe size, what size harness their dog wears, whatever, like everything we can get, but all of that's for nothing unless we're really using it in a meaningful way. So it's got to bring some benefit to all our customers too.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this in a minute. So basically sort of a decade in marketing. We've seen on the Braze side, we've seen personalization move from aspiration to reality over time. Can you share a bit about what you saw from your side, like all of those years now?
Sure, so obviously it's evolved much more than inserting 2 or 3 personalization tags into your emails and pushes and think, hey, I'm personalizing, that's it, tick the box. With text that's really up in their games with the features and capabilities that we've got, personalization has become much more of an expectation now. It's no longer an edge above your competitors because everybody's doing it. It's an expectation that all the companies that are contacting you are recommending the right things that you want. They have their data already, so you need to be using it. If you've worked in marketing for a while, like I have, you may remember a few years ago, everyone used to work on persona mapping or your buyer personas. So you might have spontaneous Steve who buys something immediately as soon as it lands on your website. Or you might have researcher Rachel who looks at every single page, reads every single review, and doesn't buy anything until she's looked at everything for the first week. While I still think that has a place as a start for your sort of audience targeting, we're really at risk of creating some big gaps and missing some opportunities there. So the shift to individual customer experiences is or really should be your priority going forward. So we need to be personalizing based on their user actions, what data they've willingly given us to use, their transaction history, even predictive Bayesian models that are backed up by any data that we've collected so far. But of course, this doesn't just apply to the content you're given. It also applies to the frequency and send your comms, the best way they receive it. Do they prefer push notifications or SMS to email? Everything should be personalized for individual users to really give that one-to-one approach, and they'll really feel that unless you're not following the data that you've got. So the tools we've got available to us now as marketers really gives us the power to be able to do this. So for example, using Braze, liquid logic in campaigns is so powerful. So
Just for people who don't know liquid logic, just
yeah, so liquid logic, it's a scripting language that you can use in Braze, and it basically means you can harness any data you've got available in Braze on the user profile or any actions they've taken. It's kind of like some really advanced if statements. If they have this, we can show something else instead. So a simple use case for using liquid logic could be if you know what their registration, what language they use when they registered with you, you can show a different language. If you know they're interested more in a certain product line, you can show different promotions based on this. So obviously that's a really big point that we can use in Braze to personalize everything. A second one with Braze is using Canvas Flow to build your journeys, because you can set individual users' pace. So you can make sure that you're not only sending emails once a week or 3-day delay before their next purchase. It can really be tailored to each individual user, and they can progress to the next stage as and when they're ready to do that.
And just for record, Canvas is our user journey builder, basically how you can paint your campaigns to come after one the other, triggering in the right time. So just in case, Canvas can be a lot of things, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone knows about Braze, it's fine. And obviously working with Movable, using progressive profiling. So if you don't know what progressive profiling is for polling, we can put polls in emails where people can vote for what they think the answer is to your poll, or what their selection is if you're looking for, what's your favourite type of clothes, and have these listed out. We can use that in a progressive format. So the next time you ask them a question, it can be based on their previous answer. So not only are you serving them the questions that are relevant to their previous answers, you're also collating some real zero-party data off the back of that as well to know that this is what they're interested in, and you can use that to further personalise your marketing going forward. So super powerful.
Yeah, I think we really understand the power of personalization. We're actually on the other side as the consumer, and we're getting something that is just it's not us. How do you not know that I've clicked 1,000 times on this purchase, and why am I not getting a voucher in the right time? It's just the frustration you feel, and the relevant information not getting into the right place. And as end users, we all recognize that. It's just how to create those mechanics behind the scene to allow for the right message in the right time across all channels. So yeah, thanks for that. So you've been seeing this shift in the industry for quite a long time. At Exinity, how did it impacted in the last 2 years around how you evolved with your technical tools, or what have you done there?
Yeah, so obviously I started Exinity nearly 2 years ago. As I sort of brought on board, we're still kind of in the infancy of how to best use Braze. So we're on board, setting up all our onboarding journeys, getting all the migration set up, because naturally you start with all your must-haves first, and you move on to all the cool and exciting stuff later on. So as time's gone on and new features and tools become available, allowed us to shift our focus to some different areas and different use cases for the business. So some examples there could be some education journeys. Obviously, we work in the trading industry, so if we've identified that people are new or they deem themselves as beginners for traders, then we know that there's an education piece to do there. We can talk about the best things to trade, or the best way to use the platform, what all these different symbols mean. So this kind of thing is really important. And then obviously working with Canvas Flow was a huge deal for us as well coming forward, because a little bit of getting used to, because we were doing similar things before. There's a similar outcome from after Canvas Flow was onboarded, but we had to have a clever sync up between some campaigns, and then we had to have some webhooks that would write data attributes to our profile, and then be able to harness that to go back into campaigns. But with the new release of Canvas Flow...
We lost everyone, I think. Kidding.
But with the new release of Canvas Flow, using experiment paths and using action paths, this has made all this possible within a couple of clicks. And just to elaborate a bit more, using experiment paths and that kind of feature there gives so much more you can do for testing as well. Makes it so easy to set winning paths. So if you think a test, you can select your percentage that you want to send a test to, and a winning path will automatically send the rest to the others. And obviously onboarding with Movable has been huge for us as well. using all the out-of-the-box features have been great. Use the image personalization, the polling, countdown timers we've used for webinars and face-to-face seminar events. But what's really been a game changer for us was having our custom apps built. So shout out to Antonio and Michael, who's helped us get all these built for us. So it really enabled us to show live pricing in all of our emails. And obviously, guys, it's Movable Link. It's live pricing at the point of the emails opened and every time the email's opened. So as you can imagine, in the financial markets, everything can change in a second. So if you think the moment you build an email, you're using static images or static content, once you've hit send, then the email arrives. By the time the users actually opened it and read the email, the information is out of date, it's redundant. So having this live pricing model has really given us a huge benefit. So it's something they wouldn't be able to do without Movable Link.
100%. I mean, it's magic, really. So when you started talking about it a bit in this industry, basically we see you guys are at the forefront in terms of testing, in terms of collecting data. How do you decide what data to collect? How do you go about that?
So we're quite lucky at Xfinity. We have a great insights team who help us analyze data and potentially find some gaps that we need to fill, or some great opportunities where we can create some campaigns to leverage this. Obviously, compliance plays a big role in this too. Working in the financial space, we need to make sure that we're aligning our marketing efforts to make sure we're not crossing any paths. Obviously, we're licensed in a lot of different regions around the world, so there's a few nuances we need to align with in terms of how we collect data and the best way to use it for marketing. But in terms of personalising for our user journeys, I think it's really a two-way street. You need to be able to service the user and improve the user experience. But on the other side of that is you need to be able to drive interaction, activity, and really make a benefit of the business as well. And one of those shouldn't get in the way of the other. All of them need to be in sync. But really looking at what data we need and what data we're going to use going forward, it could come from an idea from a strategy from the CRM team or some from the wider marketing team. But like I said, our insights team are really good to help us identify where there's opportunities to help plug a gap. So for example, if we're running a promotion recently that we're trying to target a particular region, we'll decide what data we need and then work backwards from there to find the best way to source that. In this example, it was a particular region where we needed a flag on their user profile that come through to say that they're registered from this particular promotion in this particular region. And that allowed us to harness some liquid code in Braze, which means we could personalize all our existing journeys without having to create all new email templates, new journeys, and publish it separately. We could just harness that and say, if they've got this flag on the record, we want to show this content instead or show this promotion. So it's really enhanced our marketing efforts and saved a lot of time.
Yeah, it's the only way to go, but it's also so basic that somehow it's sometimes missed, the fact and the process. So if you're, we have a lot of brands here in the audience, and each in different stage of their personalization journeys, I would imagine. Like, where to start? What can you share? What advice for people that are just starting with their personalization efforts for their campaigns to be actually meaningful?
I mean, without going into too detail about industry specific, what I'd say is to really look at what your campaign goals are and find where the blockers are. So what are the blockers from the user point of view? Is there anything that can be alleviated from that situation to make them get to the next step? So, for example, if we were, again, in trading, if we were targeting users who's doing their first trade with us and we don't know if they traded before, you could find out what could be the blockers from there. So do they need more education to know what symbols to trade with first? Do they need some advice on where to start? Do they need to have some more reassurance that we're the best fit for them as a brand? So maybe there's a brand piece to do there to try to boost some loyalty amongst that. But yeah, I'd say really drill down to what could be blocking them and make that first step and kind of work backwards from there. It may even be that what you see is your real mission critical campaign, that this is where we need to convert. It might mean that actually 2 or 3 steps back from there is where you need to start. So if this is the problem, likelihood is that if you're trying to fix it in that place, you're already too late. So take a step back and find where is the best place to really make this change to push forward.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. It's really insightful. I'm just wondering, we're in this session and I want to make sure that people actually get out with tangible things they can do, like actual actions. You have all this data. How do you go about managing it? How do you, collecting all of this, how do you make sure that it's not drowning in it, I would say?
Yeah, there's a big risk of that. Like I said earlier on, there's a vast amount of data you can collect from everywhere for every user. But I think in our CRM teams, our data and insights teams, we had another team that manages our CDP, so that's our customer data platform, that manages where all our data lives on our servers and what access our platforms have to it. So we all work really closely together in open forums around the best way to use our data. I think we're quite lucky that we're a central team that work over all of our different brands, all our different regions. So one thing that we have a good best practice for, we can roll out across all the regions to ensure that we're doing it all together. But one thing that I think is really important is to understand what data is already available. I mean, I'm sure other people have been in the same situation before where you request a piece of data to come through, or you're trying to find this piece of data or have some new zero-party data when actually you've either already got it or it can be calculated from data you already hold. So it can be pulled from different avenues in order to create this sync. So just to make sure that if you do need any more, it's collected in the right way, from the right source, to best serve the campaign needs that you've got for.
Okay, so if we're talking about few key themes that people can take, what would we say?
Yes, again, keeping it very more general in terms of best practice for every industry. I would say the very first one, documentation, is so important, and it's something that's often forgot about. I'll put my hand up and say it's something that I've missed before as well. But you really need to document what the data is, where this data's come from, what's the best use case for this data, what campaigns does it sit in, so if something needs to change, is there any exemptions to the rule sets that sits aside from what the initial campaign was for. So having that documentation really gives you a single source of truth to say, this is what we intend to do with it, this is what it is. If we need to change it, this is all the things that's going to be affected from it. Secondly, I'd say really think carefully about where the data is needed. So what I mean by that is there's been a use case recently where we wanted to discover if traders deem themselves as beginners or if they're intermediate or advanced traders. Rather than making assumptions and saying, okay, they've traded 100 times, they're advanced, they know what they're doing, we launched an in-app message from Braze in order to get them to answer us for us. So we've collected that data, which enabled us to personalize our campaigns based on their answer if they're a beginner. Again, we'll follow through with education and take them through that side. If they're advanced, then they're ready for ideas of things you can trade with now. We can talk to them in a little bit of a different language. We can use abbreviations that they're familiar with. So, really using that example, we didn't need to have a custom page built from our developers to collect this on a custom form, to go through to our CDP department, to then come through to other platforms, come to Braze. I think it's a wasted effort in terms of resource. And also thinking about the data consumption you have in your marketing platforms like Braze. As we're able to collect it in Braze on the fly, it takes one data point. Doing these other things, it may take 2 or 3. And if you're doing this on a big global scale, before you know it, you're hitting 3 or 4 times over the data points that you're ready for. And then lastly, I would say really think if you're making a difference. And I think it might sound like a bit of an obvious one, but if you're asking customers for more data, you've really got to think about if you're going to make a difference with that data. I think it's been said earlier on in the other talks that we can have all this data, and if you're collecting it in terms of you're going to improve the customer service, you're asking for feedback because you want to do some product enhancements on your app, or you're going to use it in a really meaningful way to personalize the experience, give better recommendations, then great. But there needs to be a trade-off. So for all of them to be willing to give this trade to you, you have to give them back something in return. So documentation, where the data is needed, and think about if you're really making a difference for all of your customers.
And test it as well, I would say.
Testing is super important, yeah. So I think there's a stigma in, I'd say, marketing in general, that if you're running a test, it has to be a success, it has to work. You may take weeks and weeks putting this test plan together because you're so nervous that it has to succeed. But that's the whole point of it. You're making a test. If you run a test and it doesn't work, cool, that's fine. You can either iterate it to find out more information, but you've learned something, move on and test again. And your testing cycle should never finish. So it doesn't just have to be an A/B test on a subject line or an A/B test on a piece of content. Using experiment pass or action pass within Braze, you can do 10 different iterations. And then off the back of those, whichever one works, you can end iterations underneath. So just always test, always learn, and move forward.
Well, so documentation, know where data is, know what you need to ask and when. Kind of sounds like a marriage advice, I would say. But that's probably just my side. Anyway, really appreciate you here and sharing those insights with us. And we're here if you need anything or any questions. And have a great rest of Summit. It's incredible.
Thank you so much.